U.S. and international affairs analyst Calvin Dark joins us now to take a look at President Biden's first 100 days in office. Calvin, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you.
Before being elected president, Joe Biden promised he could accomplish a lot of things in his first 100 days in office. Things to do with immigration, the economy, and of course, COVID-19. How would you rate his first 100 days in office?
Well, I think the main thing to point out is that there were two things that President Biden had to do, and he really didn't have a choice. The first was to make a contrast between himself and Donald Trump, the former president, because that's why an unprecedented number of Americans came out to vote, because they wanted to see a difference, not only in deed, but in word. And so from that standpoint, from day one, with reversing some of the executive orders and some of the policies that of the Trump administration that voters found just absolutely horrible, he has succeeded in that sense. The second challenge that he didn't choose, but he had to face, was COVID-19, because we're still dealing with it. And on that measure, as we just saw, he set a goal in December before he took office and exceeded it last week, doubled it by last week. So while I still think if there's a lot that remains to be seen for the final grade, I think he's done a good job in addressing the challenges that he had to face.
You know, speaking of the contrast between President Biden and former President Donald Trump, let's talk about foreign policy. President Biden has switched U.S. foreign policy back to a more multilateral stance compared to former President Donald Trump. How is this working out so far for him, though, especially with the likes of China and Iran?
Well, I think that with the international challenges with Iran and China, also Yemen, other crises around the world that the U.S. Is implicated in because of our interests there, it remains to be seen if his new foreign policy team, if they have the plans and the know-how to fix it. But what is true is that the world knows, our allies and our adversaries, that the U.S. is back on the world stage, not America alone, which Donald Trump called America first. It didn't really turn out like that. But our allies now know where we stand, and we are now cooperating, and not just in crises of war, but also on the COVID-19 crisis, joining the international effort to address that, as well as on climate. So for international issues, Joe Biden has shown that we are back, as he said, on the international stage. We'd have to see if his plans are going to work.
Let's move back home now. You know, police reform. There's also the issue of gun violence, which has reared its ugly head in the United States with the easing of lockdown. Former presidents have tried and failed to introduce gun laws. Do you see President Biden being successful in changing the trend?
Well, I always try to be optimistic, but my honest opinion is when it comes to guns and the disease that is gun and gun ownership in this country, I hope that President Biden can do something, but it's doubtful. But I do think that on police reform, there is an opportunity for real reform and real change. That's something that I've seen, especially with Republicans, who have decided, for the first time in a long time, that they are willing to compromise and actually try to solve this. So on police reform, I think it's possible. On gun reform, I hope it changes, but it doesn't look likely.
All right, then, Calvin, a lot to look ahead to for President Biden's administration. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you.